there could be extenuating circumstances. Good Lord willing, you never root for anybody to get injured, right? So all of a sudden, if, there's a very important player for any given team and somebody gets hurt during spring training, well, you might be forced then to be that team to go out and spend a lot of money to replace that player with somebody sitting out there on the street. Otherwise, it benefits ownership because, how badly does a player want to play? I have such incredible respect for Ian Desmond of the Colorado Rockies. I mean, this guy, whether you agree with him or disagree with him on some of the other things that he's wrestling with, I know that he comes from a biracial marriage, his mom and dad. He had major issues last year with some of the things that were going on in the country that deeply affected him personally. And so, he opted out last year. And I think last year he was supposed to make like $13 million. And he just opted out for this year the other day, and he was supposed to make another 11 or 12 million. Well, the Rockies hold, I think, a $5.5 million option, if I can remember correctly, for next year. You can guarantee that they're probably not going to bring this guy back. So when you start adding up that kind of money, you're talking 25, 30, $32 million that this guy's walked away from for multiple reasons. But that's an extenuating circumstance. I guess to answer your question directly is, how bad does a player want to play? If he can sit home and not make anything, and he feels like he should be making $2 million, and the only offer he has from a team is for $700,000, well, how bad does he want to play? They're the only ones that can answer that question.
Right. And I want to go ahead and bring it locally here to Arizona and the Diamondbacks. I know we have you for a little bit longer, and I want to make sure I get this in, and being that you covered the team for some time, how familiar you're with. And Diamondbacks have made a little bit of movement there, and now they came to an agreement with Asdrubal Cabrera with a new contract. That's the news of the day. So where do you see and what you see with the Diamondbacks? For them to be a contending team, and we mentioned it, the Dodgers and the Padres, and the caliber of teams that they are now going into 2021, and specifically in the NL West. So what can the Diamondbacks do, or what do they have to do to be able to contend against the Padres and the Dodgers, and who knows, maybe even the Rockies?
Well, I mean, I think everybody would agree who watched the Diamondbacks play last season is they have to pitch better. You're not going to beat anybody to be a playoff contending team if you can't pitch. Now, that doesn't mean they have to pitch as well as the Dodgers. The Dodgers bring in Trevor Bauer to all of a sudden go along with an outstanding pitching staff front to back. Padres have been very active in improving their pitching staff. But outside of those two teams, and those are two really good teams, especially the Dodgers, to think that you've got a couple of extra playoff teams in there, to contend for a wild card. Well, you look, for example, last season, the National League Central Division last year put 4 teams in the playoffs. Now, I know we had extra teams in the playoffs, but everybody in the division made the playoffs except for the Pirates, the Reds, the Cubs, the Brewers, and the Cardinals. None of those 4 teams are as good, potentially Milwaukee, but none of those 4 teams is as good this coming year as they were last year. The Reds took a big hit losing Bauer. The Cubs have really dismantled a lot of their franchise, not nearly the pitching they've had in recent years. The Cardinals have let some key pieces go. Yeah, they brought in, obviously Nolan Arenado to improve them offensively, but I just don't think their pitching is very good. The Brewers are another kind of flip a coin. They just find a way to go out and win games every single year. I only bring these things up because now you start examining on who your competition would be around the rest of the league. Now, I think there are a couple of teams in the National League East that are going to be a little bit better than they were last year. Whether it's Philadelphia or whether it's a Washington Nationals who had won the World Series, of course, the year before. And then last year, they weren't the same team. They lost some key pieces to that, but they still have a lot of talent on that team. The Mets have a lot of talent potentially on their team. So I think it's going to be tough for the Diamondbacks to put themselves in a position unless all of a sudden guys that did not pitch well or play well last year, all of a sudden collectively and individually, all of them sort of raise their game another level. Because when the Padres and the Dodgers are in your division and you're playing each of those teams 18 times a year, and the Giants are getting better. They're not scaring anybody to death, but they're not going to be as bad as they've been the last couple of years. And Colorado, it's always a crapshoot when you just have to play 9 of the 18 games up there in Denver. So the Diamondbacks have their work cut out for them for sure.
Thom, do you see a bounce-back season for Madison Bumgarner? He didn't have the best season last year with injuries. He had some mechanics issues, but he did play well toward the end of the year. Can you see Bumgarner coming back and kind of regaining his form he had in San Francisco?
Look, I would never put anything past Madison Bumgarner. I mean, this guy has been such a gamer and such a warrior and just an outstanding pitcher during his entire major league career. Would I be surprised if he came back and had a good year? Not in the least bit. Now, I don't know, and I'm not privy to the information. I'm not out there. You guys would know more about this than me. I mean, is he healthy? Because the answer to the question more times than not for a guy like Bumgarner, who's been as good as he's been for as long as he's been, he's good when he's healthy and he's not good when he's not healthy. And that's true for just about any player. So if he's healthy, I would suspect he'd come back and have a good year again.
Yeah, I miss seeing the Madison Bumgarner, just go out there and tears you apart. So I'm hoping that we do get to see a better season out of him this 2021 for sure. So I want to ask you one last question here. I know we just a couple more minutes with you. But what is one team that you do see in coming into the season? I know it's just spring training and we still have a lot of, pieces, that are in play or need to be put into play, but maybe that's not so much in the eye of the fans, but has some potential out there, and even maybe an underdog to even make it into the postseason.
Last year, the Marlins made the postseason, and they actually won a series in the postseason, which a lot of people forget. They beat the Cubs in the opening round of that playoff last year. Do I think they'll come back and make the playoffs again? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. But, after being so bad for so long, they went out and made a number of really interesting trades. They gave some young guys a chance to play. And I know they're not the sexiest team on the planet. I mean, that franchise has been down for a long, 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 long time. But, Derek Jeter comes in there and he starts making some changes. They brought in the first female general manager of a major league team, which I think is just fascinating and good for them to do that because she has certainly earned the right to be put in that position. There is no doubt about that. To see if they can then build the next step. I'm always interested in seeing young people in any walk of life. It's one thing when you're not expected to do it. It's another thing when you're expected to do it. And I always find just great satisfaction in watching the growth of young people who, okay, nobody thought we could do it last year, and we did really well. But now everybody's counting on us to be able to do this year, and can they then step up and execute and deliver it? That would be one team. The other team would probably be in the American League would be the Angels. They have a lot of very talented offensive players. Obviously, Rendon and Trout and Pujols is still hanging in there, and they've got some other guys. Their pitching has not been good at all. I know a lot of people in Los Angeles feels like they have not addressed the pitching the way maybe many had hoped they would in the offseason. But they're a team, again, to kind of watch to see that if they could get off to a good start. Are there a couple of guys they brought in from other teams? Jose Quintana, who's had good success in his career with the White Sox and a time with the Cubs. Can he come and all of a sudden pitch like he's capable of pitching? Well, now maybe one or two other guys do that, and they have enough offense to start beating some teams.
Thom, before we let you go, we lost our brother a couple of weeks ago, Pedro Gomez. We lost him on Super Bowl Sunday. Can you share some thoughts and memories of the relationship you had with Pedro when you were here? And obviously when you went back to the Reds, I'm sure you still had some dealings with Pedro back there in Cincinnati, back home where you are. Just share some thoughts and feelings on Pedro and the relationship and what you built with him from a friendship standpoint.
The first thing I think of, and I think you guys would probably agree with, I think most people who knew him or spent any time around him, the first thing I always thought of was that smile. Man, that guy, he had the $1 billion smile, the dark skin all the time and the gray hair, salt and pepper stuff going. And And then, those eyes and that smile, he'd light up. And, he was the beat writer for the team when we first started with the Diamondbacks in 1998. He was not yet a columnist. He had not moved on to ESPN and all that kind of stuff. So he was there, each and every day grinding it out like everybody else does during an entire baseball season when you're not only doing the home games, but you're traveling and all that kind of stuff. I just really liked him. I had a chance to grow up and knowing a lot of Hispanic Americans or Hispanics because of the business that my dad, being an announcer for the Reds. And so since I was a very young man, I knew guys like Tony Perez and David Concepcion and all these different guys really well as a kid growing up. But I didn't grow up in a place like Arizona or California where there's a big Hispanic community in those particular cities, or Miami or somewhere like that. And on a day in and day out basis as an adult, Pedro was really the first bilingual reporter that I had ever been around. And I remember I was just so amazed at the relationship that he could forge with both the, primarily English-speaking players and then the players who their primary language would have been Spanish. And I always marveled at his ability because of that and because of such a warm smile and an easy guy to laugh and quick to smile that I just thought he was just a cool guy. That's a word that's used too much. There are a lot of people that are referred to as cool that really aren't cool. But he was just a really, really cool guy. Every time I saw him, I couldn't help but smile and give him a big hug. And I'm just so sorry for his family and so many friends and, the two of you, because I know you knew him well too. And I'm just so sorry. And my thoughts or prayers are with all of you and all of them, because he was just a beautiful, beautiful guy.
Yeah, he truly was, and definitely it's going to be missed. And it just pains me to even go to a Diamondbacks game here once the season does kick off, and not seeing him there anymore. So that's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, it will be for sure.
Thank you, Thom. So great to have you. I know you have to run duty calls, I know. So, we'll definitely have you on again here soon and talk some more sports.
Well, Joanna and Ed, thank you both so much for having me. God bless you guys. Take care of yourselves, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see you out there in AZ sometime soon. I can get out of all this snow on the ground here and get out and get some sunshine.
Yes, sir.
Definitely. Always home here for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
God bless you, my brother. Thank you.
You too, buddy. All the best. Be good.
I don't have enough thanks to give Thom to join us here today and talk some baseball, talk some sports, some football, and just bringing us a more in-depth talk. Oh my goodness, Ed, such one of the great superstars in broadcasting out there.
Absolutely. I remember when I met him when he was working with the Diamondbacks. He was doing play-by-play for the Diamondbacks, as he said, back in 1998. And he and I have been friends ever since. And I'm sure you met him over at Chase Field before he moved on to the Cincinnati Reds. But he's such a great man, so giving of his time and his talents. And he's doing his own business style. As you said, he's got his DialedIn TV podcast going on, his own company. And he is just doing great major things. What an incredible broadcasting talent that we just had on the air. What an honor. It was an honor and privilege to have Thom on.
Yes, definitely. I'm looking forward to having him on many times again. Great conversation. So let's go ahead and keep talking some baseball. What do you think, Ed?
Of course.
I can just keep talking baseball all day, right?
Yeah. Let's see. We've got an hour and 12 minutes left in the show. You can talk for an hour and 12 minutes on baseball.
All right. Sounds good, which is probably what's actually going to happen here, to be honest.
That's fine.
We'll talk a little bit something else that happened over the weekend, but we'll get there at the end. But let's go ahead and Thom mentioned about the Mets and the caliber of a team that they're going to be as they kick off the season. They have just added Taijuan Walker, who was a prior Diamondback. They have Noah Syndergaard. Hopefully we'll be able to see him once the season kicks off. Right now, he's in the injured list 60 days. Do you just go ahead and go down this list, Ed? And I think, this is going to be one of the teams to beat in the National League for sure. Dejan Betances, you have Jacob deGrom,